So we're on the Mishnah on Daf Tech Chesed Bet.
Absolutely. Just starting the Mishnah.
Just starting the Mishnah. It's a brand new Mishnah. A brand new Mishnah actually refers to something we had last time around, but it's not too complicated. And there is a difficult piece of Gemara that comes up on Daf Tet. I'm not sure if I'll have my head fully around it. We'll see if we get to it tonight. Okay.
We'll do our best.
Well, all right. It was actually extremely difficult because it deals with
looks pretty short.
What?
I say it doesn't look like a long Mishnah, but
no, the Mishnah, but then the next Mishnah, which comes fairly soon, is a bit not the Mishnah. There's a piece of Gemara on it which is complicated. You'll see. Okay, Misha Yeshlo Ochlim Rubim. Okay, so if there was a minimum amount of how much you had to give for an Olas Riyah and for Korban Chagiga. We had that in the first Mishnah, whether it was Mal Kesef and Shtei Kesef or Shtei Kesef Mal Kesef. But now we're talking about all kinds of scenarios where if you have a lot of possessions and at least a small number of people, a small amount of possessions, and a lot of possessions, a small people and small possessions, what are the variations?
With you in Yerushalayim.
Right, you're paying for it. Your drinks on the house, korbanos on the house. I'm paying for my family.
Right.
But how many korbanos you want to feed everybody? And you want to divide it so that everybody will be able to eat. Now, if you bring an olah is eaten by nobody. It's the korban given to Hashem. Right? So, on the other hand, if you want to feed a lot of people, you want to feed them korban chagiga or shalmei simcha, perhaps even. So the Mishnah says, "Mishyesh lo ochlim merubim unechasim." Okay, unechasim muatim. If a person has a lot of members of the family, chetam and bet on the Mishnah, right, that turns the top. A person has a lot of family members, and he has a small amount of financial assets. Maybe shlomim merubim. He brings a lot of shalmei chagiga.
Right.
Okay. And we even learned last time that he can mix together either money to buy additional shalmei chagiga, he can take or maisa money even to make additional shalmei chagiga and so forth, and olas muatos and olas riyah he should minimize it. In other words, he doesn't have a lot of money to go around. He's got a lot of mouths to feed. So therefore, he's better off spending his money on the shalmei chagiga, which can be eaten, which are eaten, and minimizing on the olas riyah. Okay, that makes sense. On the other hand, misheyesh, a person has nechasim rubim v'ochlim muatim, has a lot of financial assets. He's a rich person, has a small family. Mevi olos merubos, he can add to his olas riyah, as it says ish kmat nas yado, and he brings a small amount of shlomim. Okay, because he doesn't have that many people who will eat the carbon. So he will put his money in the service of the Almighty because he's got a lot of money to give, and the more it's a form of appeasement, a form of tzedakah, a form of giving to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zev is a muat. A person has a small amount of people and a small amount of assets. Al Zeh Nemar, this is what the Mishnah had said in the first Mishnah that we began. Ma Kesef and Shtei Kesef, that the korban olas riyah is 1 Kesef, 1 silver coin, and the Chagiga is 2 silver coins. This was Machlokas B'Sham and Beis Hillel. Then this is the opinion of Beis Hillel. And Zev Zem Merubin, if a person has a lot of people with him and he has a lot of financial assets, so Al Zeh Namar, this is what the pasuk says in Dvarim Tadzayin, Ish Kmat Nas Yodo K'Berkas Hashem L'Kecha Asher Nas Allah. Okay? So, in other words, he can give a lot of shlomim and get a lot of olos and so forth and so on. Now, So the Gemara asks, and these are the 4 scenarios. The Gemara says as follows: Shlomim merubim mehecha ma'aseh. Halesli, where does he bring a lot of shlomim from? In other words, you said that a person has a lot of people to feed.
Right.
He should bring a lot of shlomim.
Right.
He doesn't have a lot of assets. He should bring a lot of shlomim. So where's he suddenly going to get?
As opposed to all those.
Right. But where's he going to get all this from?
Right. In any case.
So Amar Rav Chisda Tofel Umevi Pargado. So Rav Chisda says that he's going to bring additional karbanos, additional meat that he would normally eat, money for chulin, money for regular meat, and money for meiser sheni that he's bringing up with him, which he had to bring anyway, and he can combine it. He can combine it with his money that he's already sanctified to bring the Shalmei Chagiga. So in other words, where is he? The first part of the mission opened up by saying that a person has nechasim, as ochlim rubim nechasim watim. If he doesn't have so many assets, where is he going to suddenly become so gratuitous to give away all this money to Shalmei Chagigas? The answer is he has to feed this family anyway. The money he would feed his family, he can add to the Karban Shalmei Chagiga. Or if he's bringing Meiser Sheni with him, he's bringing the Meiser Sheni brings to Yerushalayim. He can combine that as well with the Shalmei Chagiga. And we had this earlier. We had this last time around. The machlokas, whether Toflin Mos Lamos or Toflin Behema Behema or Toflin Behema not Mos Lamos. So this is what Rav Chisda says. Rav Chisda says, where's he going to do it? Rav Chisda, Tofel Umevi Pargadol. He's going to combine with, he's going to combine the money or the assets and buy a very large par to bring for the Shalmei Chagiga. Not that he's going to have to give a large donation. He has money anyway to eat, or he has Meiser Sheni money. He combines that to bring a par gadol. Okay? Par is a bull.
An ox is a
shar. And par is a bull, ox is a shar.
But just as a general question, Rabbi, when people came, let's talk about the Chagiga, right?
Right.
So people, in some sense, they use their own money, right? I mean, they sanctified the money in a way. We're not talking about Meiser, right? But I'm going to bring a Riyah. Yeah. I'm going to buy whatever we agree I have to buy, right? A goat, let's say, or a sheep, or whatever. So I presume people could use their own money, couldn't they? Or
right, but he hadn't said here's a poor man, so he's going to bring the minimal amount.
Absolutely.
Right. Now on the other hand, he's got to eat.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
think of it as a difference between the money you buy that you spend in Sobeys for your meal, and going to shul and making a large shnuda when you get an aliyah. Right. So if you don't have a lot of money, you don't tick off the last check mark on the card.
Absolutely.
But on the other hand, you're still going to have to go to Sobeys to buy groceries.
Sure.
So how can you therefore add to the amount of money that you're going to use in the Beis Hamikdash? Take some of those groceries that you would have used and sublimate them and combine them together with the stuff that's for the Beis Hamikdash. The Gemara's question seems to be the fact that we're talking about a person who has nechasim watim, a small amount of money. So how can we suddenly say bring shlamim merubim? Where's he going to get shlamim merubim from? The answer is he's got to feed his family. So whatever he's going to use to feed his family, he combines with what he was going to give for shlamim, so that everybody can have enough. He thought he'd bring a small carbon, but he sees people still. He sees he won't go around, so he takes his own money and then trades it in, upgrades for a larger carbon using the money he would have used for eating, or the Meiser Sheni money, which comes from his crops that he has to bring to Yerushalayim to eat, which he then he takes the crops, desanctifies them onto money, takes the money to Yerushalayim. The Yerushalayim, he can take the money and turn it back into anything, including adding it to the carbon of the Shalmei Chagiga. Okay. So that's what Rav Chisda is simply giving us the pshat. Now that's a very simple statement. So I'm Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes makes a statement that gives the Gemara a little bit of angst. And he says as follows: Hare Amru Toflim Behema LeBehema. So he says 5 words. Rav Sheshes responds to Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda said Tofel, and Rav Sheshes says, we already learned Toflim Behema LeBehema. Now what does that mean? Or the Gemara says, what is he trying to say? So just to remind us, we go back to Chetem and Aleph. Towards the top of the page. There, it's actually on the 5th line. Chizkiya Amar Toflim Behema LeBehema V'Ein Toflim Mot LeMot. Rav Yochanan Amar Toflim Mot LeMot V'Ein Toflim Behema LeBehema. Chizkiya says that you can combine animals. You can make more animals. You can have an animal that was for hektish for the Shalmei Chagiga, and you can add an additional animal with it. but you can't combine money to make a larger animal. And Rabbi Yochanan says, no, you can combine money to money, but you can't combine animals to animals. No, when you're combining them together, there's a machlokas how you can combine them. Do you combine the animals? You say I have one animal, and therefore I'm now going to bring more animals, right. Or do I take money and combine money together to maybe buy a larger animal? Where does the combination take place? Do I say I have one animal and I see I want to give more, so I bring animal 2 behind it, right? And then I'll make them both now Shalmei Chagiga. Or I have $100 for an animal, I'll take $100 from Ma'aser Sheni and combine it to buy a $200 animal. Right. So it's machlokas between Chizkiah and Rabbi Yochanan. Which one can I do? According to Chizkiah, I'm toflim behema lebehema. According to Rabbi Yochanan, I'm toflim mos lemos. Right. Okay. The reason I mention this because the Gemara is going to get a little hung up when Rav Sheshes now says Harei Amru toflim behema lebehema. What is he referring to?
Why is it important?
They're trying to understand what Rav Sheshes means.
But why do they differentiate between one and the other? Like what's wrong with...
So each of them had different psukim that they learned it from. Okay, there was a whole long limud we had, which we had learned it last time, which was 2 weeks ago, about why one works for this one and the other one doesn't work for the other one.
Yeah. But Rav Chizda sounds like he's saying, if I understood him, that you're actually going to combine money, right? Because if he means by par gadol, not 2 of them, but a bigger animal, then the only way you could do that is by mos lemos, right?
Correct.
So
right.
Clearly, that's I would think that's what it sounds like.
Now, which is why Rav Chizda's, which is why Rav Sheshes' statement,
right,
seems to be a little bit difficult because Rav Sheshes seems to say you're now going to take one animal and add another animal to it. So Rav Chizda, that's the Gemara's question.
Yeah.
So we'll read again from the Gemara. So Rav Chizda said back on Chet Medbet, Tofel umevi par gadol. If you have a lot of people to feed, you combine and you bring one big fat animal. Rav Sheshes says, it says Toflim behema lebehema. So what is Rav Sheshes saying? Is Rav Sheshes asking a question? Is he commenting? Is he supporting this? What's he really trying to say? So the Gemara tries to understand that based upon the machloka, the Rav Yochanan and Rav Sheshes. Mm-hmm. So my kamalei, what is Rav Sheshes trying to say? Ilay mahachi kamalei. If you mean the Rav Sheshes is trying to say the following: Harei amru toflim behema lebehema v'lomos lemos. Those Rav Sheshes is trying to say exactly what Chizkiah said. You can combine make one animal and 2 animals, animal A, animal B.
Not money.
But you can't make money and combine them all together into one big, large sum to buy one animal.
Sounds like an attack on what Rav Chizda just said.
Right. So is that what Rav Sheshes is really saying? But if that's the case, v'lei malei, why does Rav Sheshes say it more clearly? V'lei malei ain't toflim mos lemos. Okay, in other words, why say toflim behema lebehema, and you're trying to assume there's a question? Why not say what the question is? That you can't combine mos lemos, which is what Rav Chizda is trying to say here.
Right.
So again, it's a little bit complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can bring 2 animals instead of... Wouldn't that count as 2 korbanot?
So you start with one, and the second one becomes like an accessory to the first one. That's why Rabbi Yochanan says you're better off combining the money to buy one animal. You're supposed to bring one animal. On the other hand, you can bring Ishkmat Nas Yodo. You bring looks like you can bring as many animals possibly as you can.
Accessory meaning if the first one isn't work out, you can bring the other behemoth.
Right. But it means you can actually bring 2 animals as carbon Shalmei Chagiga.
And it counts as only one.
And it counts as a carbon Shalmei Chagiga, or it counts as multiple Shalmei Chagiga that you are using, that they're all part of the same thing. Okay? I don't know how to describe it any better, except that
it's one mitzvah, but
it's one, right? Correct. It's hard. I guess we don't have anything similar where you take 2 animals and make it equal to 1 carbon. You mince it. Well, I don't know. Okay, you combine them all together when you serve it out. So, but if that's the case, v'lei malei ain't toflim mos lemos. Ella hachi amalei. So the Gemara says that's not what he says. He's saying as follows: Harei amro af toflim behema lebehema. Okay. In other words, don't read Rav Chizda saying toflim behema lebehema and not mos lemos. Rav Chizda is saying you can do both. In other words, Rav Sheshes is saying you can do both. Rav Chizda says you have to combine the money to buy one big par. Comes along Rav Chizkiah to say, oh, there's something else you could do. Hare toflin behema lebehema. You can do mos to mos, and you can also bring two animals as well.
Right.
Which, by the way, is not either of Rav Chizkiah or Rav Yochanan.
Yeah.
Either the machlokas on Chetam and Aleph was either one, either behema the behema combined, or mos to mos.
Right.
They each disagreed with the other opinion. Now comes Rav Sheshes to say, you know what, you can do both.
Exactly.
Which Gemara says, come on, Delov Kichizkiah, Delov Rav Yochanan.
Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't follow neither Rav Chizkiah nor Rav Yochanan. Okay, so the Gemara says, so that, and which is a little bit difficult, right? And the reason it's difficult because Rav Yochanan and Chizkiah each brought a brisa that they interpreted to support them.
Mm-hmm. But is Rav Sheshet on the same level with those two?
So Rav Sheshes is the same level as Rav Yochanan and Chizkiah, but each of them brought a masnisa, a brisa to support them.
I got you.
So Gemara says, you're right, but v'chitem amoraihu de pligi masnisa lo pligala. But maybe you'll say, well, you know, the brisa that they brought to support, you could interpret it the other way as well. Each had a way how the other opinion interpreted the brisa. The brisa wasn't a slam dunk. So they say, okay, you know what, the brisa, you're right, the brises were brought as proofs, but they could be brought for both opinions, really.
Right.
So the machlokas just say it's among Amoraim. So Gemara says, well, that's not true. So, v'hakatani achila rishona minachulin. So the Gemara says, one of the brises says that you have to achila rishona.
What was the Achila Rishona? I forget now.
Achila rishona.
It's on Amud Aleph, and it's further down a little bit. Right?
Correct. This talks about whether you could bring.
Yom Rishon min Achulin says Beit Shammai.
Right.
And that's all of them. Mikan ve'elach min ha'maaser.
Correct.
Then Beit Hillel omrim Achila Rishona min Achulin. Mikan ve'elach min ha'maaser. What was that about?
So the proof of Rav Yochanan was the fact that it said la'arev ma'arev, which meant that you were combining money, and the proof of Chizkiah was a second brisa that talked about that if you brought, you have to bring the korban shal Chagiga of money that wasn't sanctified. You couldn't bring it. You could not bring it from a Meiser Sheni money, and Beis Shammai says the first day you have to bring from Chulin. The afterwards you can bring min Meiser Sheni, and Beis Hillel says Achila Rishona min Achulin, Mikan ve'elach min Meiser. Beis Hillel says the first bite has to come from an animal that's Chulin. The second bite can come from an animal that's Meiser. So in other words, according to the brisa that was being brought to Chizkiah, that said you bring two animals, animal A followed by animal B. If you bring two animals, the first bite has to come from the animal that was never Meiser. The second bite can come from an animal that was Meiser, which seems to be, and this is the proof to Chizkiah, that what are we doing? We're talking about one animal and the second animal, toflin behema lebehema,
right?
Because it talks about the first animal that's being brought, the first bite, so to speak. Achila Rishon is coming from an animal of Chulin. The second bite is coming from an animal of Meiser. That seems to be clearly that we're talking about two different animals, right? Two different animals. So, in other words, that brisa looks like you can't really explain it except according to Chizkiah that you're combining toflin behema lebehema and not mos to mos, because it's talking about eating an animal. The first animal you bought for the korban shal Chagiga was from Chulin, and the second animal that you brought looks like it's from Meiser. But what animal A and animal B? So Gemara says, "V'akatani achila rishona min achulin." So Gemara answers, "My achila rishona shir de me'achila min achulin." In other words, it means really you could combine most to most, make one big fat animal.
Right.
The first bite that you have, you assume that's coming from the animal, the money that was stolen. The second bite, the thing is coming from the animal, the money that was Ma'aser Shenis. In other words, in the end of the day, what we're saying is that even the Bryce that looked like it supported Chizkiah could be interpreted the other way around, and therefore Rav Sheshes becomes a third opinion. They're really there for three opinions in the end of the day. Chizkiah that says that if you want to bring more than one, if you don't have enough in the animal, you bring animal A and animal B, but you can't combine monies together to make a big fat animal. Rav Yochanan says the exact opposite. You combine money to buy a big fat animal, you can't bring animal A and animal B. And the Rav Sheshes now says you can do either one of them to combine it together. Because in the end of the day, you're bringing them together in one form or another.
What's important which one you do? What is the
how to do it?
No, but which one the chulin comes first? What's the logic there?
Because you can't. If something is sanctified for some purpose, you can't re-sanctify for something else.
Oh, but you can.
So Ma'aser Shenos, if I want to sanctify something, it's like recycling a gift you get. And I guess this the analogy. You get a gift, you unwrap it. What do? You rewrap it and pass it along. When you do that, how do you feel? You feel they'll never know the difference at the other end, right? And you got rid of something you didn't really want. So therefore, if something, the analogy, and it's not maybe a perfect analogy, if I have an animal that's sanctified to Hashem, I cannot now re-sanctify it for a different purpose. So the case we're talking about where I had Ma'aser Sheni, I had crops that I harvested, I have to bring the tithe to Yerushalayim to eat it. It's sanctified. Well, now I want to take that mutton and I put it onto money. The money is now sanctified. I now come to Yerushalayim. I now can do a lot of things with that. I can buy food. I can buy bread. I can buy an animal. If I now want to give it to a korban, I can't give it to a korban that's supposed to be sanctified for something else. What can I do is if I have a korban that I have my own money, which was never sanctified, I can add to it. All right? I can either add money to it, or if I have an animal that was sanctified as a korban, like a korban for Meiser, I can now bring that animal as a secondary animal to it. Right? It's like but I can't do that as the first korban. The first korban I bring has to be a brand new sanctification for Hashem. So that's why it's important that the first bite or the first part be considered coming from chulin. And it's important, therefore, if I'm bringing I want to bring a larger animal, that I have, let's say, $100, or an animal worth $100 that's chulin never was sanctified. To that, I can add an animal that was sanctified as Ma'aser Sheni and make it a bigger animal, make it a second animal. But if I put it together, $100 and $100, $100 of chulin, $100 of Ma'aser Sheni, then I pretend as if to say the first bite I took, right, was from that first non-sanctified money, and the second bite I'm taking from the sanctified money. If I'm bringing two animals, the first animal has to be the non-sanctified animal, the second animal must be a sanctified animal. That's the way it goes.
But if it's sanctified, you could call it yourself. You can eat it yourself anyway. So
but it was sanctified as Ma'aser Sheni. So in other words, what I can do with the Ma'aser Sheni, this is called toflin. Toflin means like tofel. I can make it a secondary accessory to my original sanctifying animal. Means I have my own money. Ishkman nasyado. And I'm taking my money and I'm buying an animal to give to Hashem. Whether I eat it or God eats it.
Part to him.
Or I give part to Hashem and part I eat. But I still have to sacrifice it. It's my money. Ma'aser Sheni is not my money. Ma'aser Sheni I am entrusted to bring to Yerushalayim, which was sanctified for me to eat it there. I'm eating it, but it's really God's money who allows me to eat it there.
Yeah.
So therefore, if I need to expand my korban, I can use Ma'aser Sheni money to make the animal bigger, or to bring a second animal. But I still got to start with something that's my money, which we call chulin. Okay?
Good.
So the end of the day is.
So we'll go with Rav Sheshet. He has a nice wide opinion, I think. No?
Yep, correct. Okay.
I don't know if that's halacha, but it sounds good.
Correct. Okay. So that's that. Amar Ula Amar Reish Lakish. Okay. Here's where you have a person has a lot of karbanos he's bringing on one day. Remember we talked about the fact that you have an opportunity to bring many karbanos. You have a lot of people to eat, a lot of Chagiga.
Right.
You can bring as many karbanos as you have eaters.
Wasn't there a machloket at the beginning, but how many you could bring, or forget? Remember?
No, you bring Ishmael
Not just one.
Nasilah.
Was it the? There was some. Didn't we have some
But
argument?
they had to bring it on the first day.
Okay. How many you could bring in the second day, the third day? Although, yeah.
So in other words, I have here Amaresh Lakish, Hefresh Eser Behemos L'Chagigaso. I set aside 10 animals for my korban Chagiga, and on the first day of Yantif, Hikriv Chamesh B'Yom Tov Rishon, Chozer Umakriv Chamesh B'Yom Tov Sheni. So I sacrifice 5 on the first day. What do I do with the second 5? I roll it over and bring them on the second day. Got a lot of people, a lot of eaters. They're going to eat 5 animals each day, 5 animals on the second day. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, so who says this? Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan, who argues on Reish Lakish in many cases. Rabbi Yochanan Amar came in Shapasak, Shuveino Makriv. Once I stop bringing on the first day, I can't bring the other 5 on the second day.
That's because I.
We don't know why yet.
Okay. I set aside 10, though. It says at the beginning, right?
I have 10. I brought 5 on the first day. According to Reish Lakish, I can bring 5, next 5 on the second day. According to Rabbi Yochanan, I bring 5 on the first day. If I didn't bring all 10 on the first day, the last 5 are gone. They're wasted.
What do you do with your promise that you made?
They're gone. Okay, they can't be used. They can't be used.
Well, you can eat them ordinarily, can you?
I don't think so. I don't think they can be brought.
So what do you do with them?
I think they just
set them loose.
Just let them raise until they die. I don't know
what to do. Okay. Yeah.
So the Gemara says it's not a machlokas. They're dealing with different scenarios, and the scenarios actually seem to be the opposite of what you may think it to be. V'amra amarabba v'lo pligi kambestam kambem mafaresh. So Rabbi says they're not really arguing. One of them is talking about where he didn't intend. He just said, I'm going to bring these animals, like I'll bring them all now. And Mefaresh means he said, I'm going to. He said, I'm going to bring them all on the first day. Okay? So Stam simply says, I'm going to bring them, I'm just going to bring these animals. So, and Mefarish means I'm going to bring them all on the first day. So, and what is the answer? And the answer Rashi explains as follows. And here the logic seems to be counterintuitive to what we may think it to be. Where the person says, I want to bring them all on the first day.
If he says that.
If he says, I'm going to bring these all on the first day.
Right.
So, if he didn't bring them all on the first day, the next 5 are he wanted to bring them all the first day.
Right.
He's going to bring them on the second day to make up for the first day. You'll see, the Gemara will explain it. It looks like it's counterintuitive. You would think normally the first day's finished, it's gone.
Right.
The person says, I want to bring them all, right? What he meant to say was bring them all as much as I can,
right.
And that's it. Or it looks like he's going beyond the first day. Okay, so the Gemara, we'll stay with the Gemara. The Gemara will explain it. Just remember that it looks like it's going the opposite of logic. If it's Mefarish to bring the first day, he can then make them up on the second day. If he says nothing, he can't bring them up on the second day. Okay? The hide stam hechidami. When it says stam, what are we talking about? But the person said, I want to bring them all. He didn't say today. And we said the halacha is if he says, I'm going to bring them all, and he only brought 5, he can't bring them the next day. If it means he ran out of time to bring them, okay, hide luck, ribnud, lekah, shes b'yom. Well, that's not fair. He didn't bring them all today because the time ran out. It's not that he was a bad guy. He intended to bring them as much as he could, but the Kohanim were slow, or that was all they could process. So, therefore, that doesn't sound like a reason if he says, I'm bringing all 10, that he shouldn't bring the next 5 the next day. Elad lesle ochlin. So, what must be the case? Well, he didn't have enough people to eat them. He thought he had more people than he had. He turned around and his family got smaller. They all ran away. And therefore he brings, and there's no one to eat them. So he says, well, I'm not going to slaughter the rest of them today.
Sure.
Tomorrow the same people will come back. They got to eat tomorrow as well. So the Gemara said, if that's the case, less laochlin, hide lokrim with less laochlin. The reason to bring them because they didn't have ochlim, they didn't have people to eat them. So in other words, the first two scenarios we gave for Stam don't make sense because in both those cases he was not at fault. Right? There was a reason why he didn't bring the karbanos on the first day. Either they ran out of time or he ran out of eaters. So lo tzricha. The islay, the ikosheos b'yom, the islay ochlin. So what must be the case in Stam, where there was time to bring them, but he only brought 5, he stopped after 5. There were people to eat them, and therefore, and lo pravinu, he didn't bring them. Shma mina, you see the reason that he didn't bring them was, shiurei sharinu, that he simply left them over for the next day, and if he left them over, he thought he's supposed to bring them on 2 days, which is wrong. You're supposed to bring them on the first day. So the fact that he thought he's supposed to bring the karbanos on the second day was a reason, therefore, to disqualify him from bringing the karbanos on the second day. Now,
say that one more time.
In other words, if he doesn't declare that he wants to bring them today,
if he doesn't declare, I want to bring them today.
He says, I want to bring them.
I'm going to bring 10 things. Okay?
Right, and instead he only brings 5.
Right.
He could have brought the other 5.
Right, clearly.
And there was plenty of time, there was plenty of people to eat. If he doesn't bring the entire bunch today and waits till tomorrow, it looks like the reason is because he felt the reason was he could bring them tomorrow.
Yeah.
But he's supposed to clearly bring them the first day, ideally. So that's an erosion. In other words, if that's the case, then he is like, it looks like he's going into a Baal Tosif. It looks like he's adding to the yontif or adding to the time to bring the karbanos. Well, he thought the time for bringing karbanos is ideally the first 2 days, which is wrong. If and let's go back to this. If he says, I want to bring them all today,
right?
So what must that case be? He wanted to bring them today, and something prevented him. If he didn't say anything, it has to be that he was prevented. He prevented himself from bringing them, and he didn't show an indication he wants to bring them today. And therefore, and in that case, therefore, he can. It must be that the case is stam, and he had time to bring them, and had people to eat them, but he still waited till the next day. So therefore, the machlokas of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish is not really machlokas. Try it again. If he says, I want to bring them all today, he clearly shows his intent is to bring them all the first day. Whose opinion was that? That was Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. That's what he said. And therefore he can bring them all the next day. Even if he didn't bring them that day, we see something stopped. Something precluded him. If he doesn't say I want to bring them today, and he had time to bring them today and he didn't, must be that he thought the day today was only for half to bring the carbon, and the other half was for tomorrow, which is not true. They're all supposed to be brought together at the same time, ideally. So therefore, in such a case, that's the opinion of Reish Lakish, who says, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, says, Kem Shapasach, Shulvein Makriv. That's the case of Stam. So it actually works out. Where he says, I want to bring them today, he can bring them today.
He really wants to bring them today.
Something stopped them.
Right.
If he didn't say that, then if the circumstances show that he could bring it the next day, or could bring it that day, but he was precluded, so that was not his fault. If, on the other hand, the circumstances show that he could have brought it, but he didn't on his own volition, so that means he stopped. He brought what he's supposed to bring for the first day. He didn't say, I want to bring them today. He brought what he wanted to bring that day. Well, that was the carbon. What he didn't bring that day, that's not the carbon anymore. Because he could have brought more of the animals that day. So therefore, the machlokas of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, according to Rabbi Abba, is not a machlokas. They're dealing with different scenarios. Again, if he says mafarish, I want to bring him today, he can always make him up tomorrow because he obviously was stopped. If he says stam and he was precluded by outside reasons, he can bring him the next day. If he's stam, he didn't say the reason, and he was precluded by himself, he stopped himself, then that shows that he finished bringing the carbon.
He planned to bring 5 really today.
Right, regardless of what he said. And the Gemara says, so Shema Minashur Mishurina. V'yachinami Mistarba, and this is supported by the following brisa, the Kiyasi Ravin Rabbi Yochanan, or the following name, when Ravin came, from Eretz Yisrael back to Bavel, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, and let me read it and I'll explain it to you. Hefresh Esa Behemos, the Chagiga, so Hekriv Chamesh B'Yom Tov Rishon, Choser Makriv B'Yom Tov Sheni. So Ravin brings a statement named Rabbi Yochanan. What does this statement of Rabbi Yochanan say? That he has 10 animals to bring. He brought the 5 on the first day. He brings 5 on the second day, correct?
Yeah.
Now, go back up a couple of lines. What did Rabbi Yochanan say when we started this Gemara? Amar Ulam Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan Amar Kevin Shapasak Shuv Eino Makriv. So the Rabbi Yochanan we started this Gemara with says once he stopped, you can't bring. The Rabbi Yochanan that Ravin brings back from Eretz Yisrael on his trip back from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel says the exact opposite.
Exactly.
So it's no longer Rabbi Yochanan against Reish Lakish.
Right.
It's Rabbi Yochanan against Rabbi Yochanan. So will the real Rabbi Yochanan stand up? The answer is they're both correct. So Gemara says Kashna Dadi. There's a Kasha one against the other. Lav Shmamina Kam B'Stam Kam B'Mafarish Shmamina. And the Gemara concludes and says It Manami. Amrav Shimon Bar Abba Amrav Yochanan Lo Shano El Shlo Gomar. So we actually have a support to make the statement clearly that it says that you this is going to be
maybe it means that he couldn't finish. Maybe
right. You can't bring in more.
Sorry. I shouldn't say anything.
Right. So it's explaining a brisa that's going to be later on the Gemara, and the Gemara and Rav Shem Bar Abba says in there Rabbi Yochanan is once again Rabbi Yochanan commenting says Lo Shanu. It didn't say that you can't bring them tomorrow. El Shlo Gamar. That you didn't finish. What didn't finish? We're not clear. Avo Gamar, but if it finished, Choser Makriv. The Gemara says, my Gamar, what was finished? Hilem a Gamar Karbanos of my Makriv. The Karbanos were finished. What are you bringing? Ela Shlo Gamar Hayom. In other words, if the day didn't finish and you stopped, so then you can't bring again. But Avo Gamar Hayom, Choser Makriv. If you ran out of time because the sun set, the day was over, then you can bring the next day. So in other words, what we're really saying is that it's the same thing all around here. If you said, I want to bring today, and obviously if you didn't bring them all today, you were stopped. Something stopped. You ran out of time. If you didn't say anything, so it must be that if you didn't bring them all that day, if you were stopped by an outside reason, you ran out of time, you can bring them the next day. If you didn't, then obviously you can't bring them. Then you can't bring them the next day. Okay, so that's the second piece of Gemara. The second piece of Gemara really has nothing to do with our Mishnah per se, except it brings a scenario of bringing multiple karbanos, right. Where can you bring them split over multiple days or not? You tried and didn't try.
Well, especially it ties in only because the people who wanted to bring a lot, because they have a lot of people to feed, they're going to have to bring more than one animal, likely, right?
Correct.
Very possible.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Correct.
On the carbon itself, can't you say that he designated for God, whatever category? Then just give it to give it to a Kohen or give it to support the same as you do with other money. What's the difference? It's like you can't use it for yourself.
The answer is it makes sense to us, but that's the rule is certain things were designated for God, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you don't just let it go off.
You mean the other 5? What are you going to do with the other 5 animals?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure the other 5. I think it's probably year out your stuff. They probably have to let them graze until they have a mum, and then they can't use them anymore. It's usually what happens. We no longer have a base in Mikdash anymore today. So be aware. Okay. So question is, what application could there be today? Okay, so does one have to eat meat on Yontif? Okay, and this goes actually back to the last piece of what we did last time, which discussed about bringing in Karban Chagiga, and the reason we learned about Karban Chagiga according to the Gemara was from V'samachta. And therefore you can eat meat that brings simcha. And Ophos, fowl was never considered full simcha, was considered a lower grade of meat or protein. In fact, as you know, it's not even considered basar v'chalav min haTorah. So meat, on the other hand, is considered. It excludes fowl. It excludes, by the way, mincha, which were the flour offerings.
Yeah, sure.
And question: what is the application today? What can we do to celebrate and create simcha today when we don't have a Beis Hamikdash? Okay, so there's a bit of I took it from a likud of commentaries. There's a dispute between Rambam and Tosafot whether the biblical command to rejoice applies nowadays. Rambam maintains that the biblical command to rejoice can be fulfilled by partaking of any item that brings a personal joy. However,
what was it? Is that only food, or it could be something else?
It can be something else. Okay.
Sounds like anything. He's
Okay.
with you.
He's my
Here's your man. Rambam's your man.
Okay. Good. Okay. Now, however, when the Beis Hamikdash was extended, the mitzvah was primarily fulfilled lechatchila by partaking of the meat from korbanos. But those who were unable to partake of the korbanos, they were tomei or uncircumcised, would fulfill the mitzvah in other ways. This is what who's saying this? Rambam. Good. Accordingly, nowadays at the Beis Hamikdash is not extended, the biblical mitzvah is still fulfilled through other means by bringing a person joy. Okay, that's who says that the Rambam says that. Tosafot, on the other hand, maintains that nowadays mitzvah of rejoicing on the festival is only rabbinic, because fulfillment of the biblical mitzvah demands eating from the Shalmei Simcha, which cannot be done without a Beis Hamikdash. So yes, you can eat, you can do things that bring you joy. That's not the mitzvah minat Torah. That's a rabbinic extension today. Okay. The Kloisenberger Rebbe, Rabbi Chudia, and Rabbi Tusia Yehuda Halberstam inquired whether, according to the Rambam's position, that the biblical command of rejoicing can be fulfilled even in the absence of Beis Mikdash, that one should particularly partake of meat to fulfill the mitzvah. Should you try for meat today? According to the Rambam, so the Kloisenberger Rebbe suggests that the matter revolves around two explanations in the Gemara why one does not fulfill the biblical mitzvah simcha with bird or flour korbanos. The Brisa derives this halach from the exposition that states that the mitzvah is fulfilled only when one partakes of those foods that can be used for korban chagiga, which limits the mitzvah to animal meat rather than fowl or flour. Rav Ashi excludes flour and fowl because their consumption does not lead people into a state of joy. Okay, so you have two reasons. One, the Brisa says you have to have something that could be a korban chagiga, right? And Rav Ashi says it's got to be simcha. According to the Brisa explanation, since we do not have a Beis Mikdash to offer the Shalmei Simcha, anything a person uses to fulfill the mitzvah simcha will suffice, even fowl. Right, because we don't have a Beis Hamikdash. The only reason you had to bring, the only reason that you have to use meat was because you can bring Shalmei Simcha, Korban Chagiga. Okay, and therefore Shalmei Simcha would be the same thing. In contrast, according to Rav Ashi, the mitzvah of Simcha would not be fulfilled even nowadays with fowl, since by definition it does not bring a person into a state of joy. Accordingly, Rambam, who rules in accordance with Rav Ashi's explanation, will maintain that even nowadays one must eat meat in order to fulfill the mitzvah of rejoicing on Yantif. So according to the Kloisenberger Rebbe, though it looked like initially the Rambam would say that we can do anything to participate joy, he felt that if you want the mitzvah, the real mitzvah, you've got to eat meat on Yantif. Okay?
Where does wine come in?
Wine makes everybody happy. Okay? Yeah.
So why are we talking about wine?
Well, I guess there also was a karma. They bought the Nesachim together, were libations of wine together.
No, but in terms of today, they say today fulfill this mitzvah with wine rather than...
Right, because wine makes a person. Wine is a release. Wine releases inhibitions. But you want to know something? You will be more happy with meat without wine than wine without meat.
Me for sure.
Okay.
Me for sure.
Wine without meat?
Wine without meat will not satisfy you. Okay, it will actually make you happy, and then probably will depress you.
That the meal is not a complete meal unless you're satisfied with eating bread at the meal.
Right.
But
So,
meal alone,
but
meal alone is going to satisfy you.
So the answer has got to be a satisfaction with a celebratory satisfaction. People ate bread every day. They probably didn't eat meat more than a number of times, a few times during the week. So wine clearly is something chashuv, and it obviously increases the happiness. I don't think wine can bring happiness on an empty stomach. I think that's where it comes together.
You wonder, given what you just read, you really, I think of Europe, where come Mitzuras they managed to get a chicken for Shabbos, and you really wonder how many families. I mean, I think of my own or whoever, back in the Pale, even for Yantif, how many people could afford to go and buy? I guess some people occasionally, maybe they did for Yantif buy meat.
I don't know where they got meat. I don't know where they got meat.
All I know is most of they ate like Tzimbalist, you said, with schmaltz. I don't know, most of the week after the Shabbos, right?
I don't see people shechting cows up in Europe.
No.
I don't know, maybe Shepsel, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Shepsel, occasionally.
There's a Yiddish expression, so when a farmer eats a chicken, one of them is sick.
Exactly. Chicken was the great invention.
They didn't have chickens in the days of the. They did not have our chickens in the days of the war.
Yeah, no, the chicken. Yeah.
Where were the chickens?
Chickens were running around, but they were not developed as a type of food. They eat pigeons and
They
doves.
come from like Thailand or somewhere originally.
I don't know where they came from.
Actually, come from out there.
The scavengers.
Quail.
Quail is different. Yeah, those kind of animals.
Quail's not a big bird either.
Actual chickens are like.
Right.
They're more
What
chickens
we
than
have developed, what modern man has developed, the chicken industry is very different than what was. Chickens were scavengers.
Absolutely.
They're a flightless bird. And I don't know. Look, it's a good source of protein. It works.
It is. Yeah.
But it's still, but you understand that's why fowl is not considered. It's not considered meat. It's not considered meat for basa b'cholov. It's hard to imagine.
Well, from a Torah,
from a Torah level perspective, of course, Torah level perspective. Right. So
it's terrific. I can only tell you it's a great way to convert. I don't know how much grain they had in the old days, but having raised chickens commercially, I can tell you that, you take a chick that weighs nothing, and in, I think, how many weeks? 5-6 weeks, like a couple of kilo at least, right? Ready for shechting and stuff, so it's like really...
Based on grain.
Tremendous on grain, just on pure grain. They can convert grain into meat, like... very quickly, seriously.
Yeah.
5 weeks, 6 weeks.
That's an incredible science.
Oh, yeah, no,
South Africa, remember, before was the biggest chicken farm in the country.
Yeah.
Like he's run these huge computer algorithms.
No.
He's got feed conversion ratios. On how to mix the grains.
That's what I'm saying. No, it's fantastic. And mine, I had 5,000, let's say. It's an amazing thing, right? When you really talk about raising food in a short time, and not a huge space, let's say, relatively speaking. Amazing.
So, anyways, we have a new Mishnah. We actually can read the Mishnah. We'll get to the Gemara next time. Okay.
What's the reason why with Sukkot you associate Sukkot with Hakud happiness as opposed to?
Because it says
Shavuos
because the psukim of V'samach b'chagecha v'yisach sameach occur for Sukkot.
But how come? But
why? I'll tell you why.
But we're referring here to all Yom.
Yeah.
Because this harvest festival, when you bring the harvest in, it's very happy. As opposed to Pesach is the beginning of the grain harvest. Shavuos is simply first fruits. This is the end. It is, and if you understand every farmers festival, every autumn farmers festival, you'll understand why Sukkot is what it is. If you understand the Canadian Thanksgiving, the day of Canadian Thanksgiving, which is based upon Sukkot, you appreciate. That's the time to celebrate. That's the time to stock it away.
But the commandment is for all the every Yom.
So machta b'chagecha, absolutely.
So like it's the same. It's the same for all three.
True, yeah, but now the farmer brought everything in.
Sukkah says ach sameach, the only one that says ach sameach, right?
I was reading on the Holy Spirit about eggnog. Okay, the reason eggnog becomes associated with this time of year is because farmers were not out in the field. They could afford to just sit home and drink. First of all, whatever you had, you wanted to preserve. So if you had eggs, you preserved them in alcohol, right? And from this developed eggnog. And which farmer would be out drinking while he was harvesting? No one. But in the middle of December, there was nothing else to do. Right? You based upon the stores that you put away.
So what you just gave us to read now, do we do a survey? How many people eat meat on Shavuos as opposed to staying just with the dairy in this class here? There are people who eat Shavuos.
We have the milk.
Yeah.
So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to have the milk and the flake shakes. Some of us alternate meals.
Some of us old folk, we just stay with my daughter-in-law's cooking.
Anyways. Why don't we just start the Mishnah? Maybe we'll line to Mishlochag b'yom tov rishon shachag chogeg es kol regel V'yom tov achon shel Chag. So if you did not bring your Korban Chagiga on the first day, this is not about trying to spread it over a number of days, and you thought you can bring it multiple days. If you were unable to bring it on the first day, you can bring it the next day. You chogeg et kol haregel. You can bring the Korban Chagiga on the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and V'yom tov achon shel Chag, and even the last day of the Chag, which means Shmini Atzeret, which we normally view as a separate festival by itself. It's still a makeup day. Pesach, you only get 7 days. Sukkot, you get only 7 days. Sukkot, you get the full 8 days. And Avar Regel, below Chag, if you underpassed the one you didn't bring, it doesn't mean you didn't celebrate. You didn't bring the Korban Chagiga. Eino Chai B'Achriyuto. This is it means you can't make it up. You're not responsible to make it up. It means it's gone. It's for fallen. It's past. You can't make it up. Al Zen Nemar, Muvat lo yuchal liskom v'chesman lo yuchal limonos. This is what Shlomo Melech writes in the book of Quelus. Something which is crooked can't be straightened, and something which is missing can't be made to be counted.
What does that mean?
That means there are some things that are messed up that you can't bring them back.
Some things.
Something. Well, Shlomo's saying that which is crooked can't be straightened out, and that which is missing can't be counted.
As a general rule, because
he's saying this is what Koheles is talking about. There are some things in life can't be brought back. So if you didn't bring the Korban Chagiga on Sukkot, and Sukkot is gone, Shmini Atzeres is gone, it's gone.
The time is gone.
Correct?
Yeah.
But there's no makeup time.
Yeah.
So
There's no payback taxes with interest and penalty. It's gone. It's finished. Now you say, well, I saved the money. Yeah, but you missed the opportunity.
What about tshuva?
That's tshuva is fine, but you missed the opportunity. Tshuva can serve you on a spiritual level and help you become a better person. But the opportunity for this mitzvah is gone.
What a guy who has a rotten life and then at the end he's does this and gets to all
I don't know. This is off topic, okay?
But back to this thing.
But this is gone. This is gone.
The assumption here is that a person either didn't make it to Yerushalayim for some reason, didn't get there, or whatever, something like that, right?
Correct.
Good.
Or you didn't have an animal. Or you did not have an animal.
Didn't have the money.
You didn't have the money, you didn't have an animal, correct.
Right.
In other words, some things are not time bound.
Right.
Some things are time bound. Right? Some
This
things
is the Re'iyah or the Chagiga? Or it doesn't matter.
It's actually both. Let's talk about the Korban Chagiga.
Right.
Okay. And having said that, the Gemara is going to have a whole discussion about what the pasuk means. Rav Shimon Nasi Omer, Eize Muvas She'eino Yochel Litokein. What is that which is crooked, which can't be made straight? Zeh Bo Ala Erva V'Holid Mimenu Mamzer. A person who has relations with a woman who is prohibited, incestuous relationships, and gives birth to a mamzer. The status of mamzer, which is a whole long discussion unto itself, can't be reversed. Right, can't be retread. And the Mishnah says, how do you know this is what's talking about? V'im Tomar Begone V'Gozel. Maybe you'll say, but that which is crooked means I stole money. I took something that didn't belong to me. So Yachulav zero. Be talking. I can bring it back. So I can fix it. Tshuva. So it means something that I can't fix. What can I fix? Mamzer can't be fixed. What can't be fixed? If I miss the opportunity to bring the Korban Chagiga. Rav Shimon Yochai Amar Ein Kar Mu'uvas El Misha Emetukam Atchila. When Koheles says that which is crooked, crooked means something was straight and became crooked. Didn't mean it was crooked from the beginning. Which means v'netavet. In betuchan b'tchila v'netavet. It was originally straight, fixed, and became crooked. V'ezeh zeh Talmud Chacham haporish min Torah. This is a scholar who kind of breaks away and returns away from the Torah.
It can't be fixed.
Well, that's what Shlomo Melech is saying. What this person does looks like it's so difficult. He's never going to go back. And those if a person never learned, never know what it was, there's always room for change. But a person who is at the pinnacle, right, he can't go back. There are cases, of course, where they go back. Rish Lakish is probably the most famous case. Rish Lakish was actually looks like he was a yeshiva bacher.
I thought he was like
and then he became a highwayman. Yeah, and then he became back. But at one point he was the original maybe Baal Tshuva because he looked like he came from good stock. He had a background. He slipped away, and then Rabbi Yochanan brought him back because he married his daughter, married his sister.
So what do you say?